We are back talking preseason week 2 implications for fantasy football. As always, guys, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and join our Discord. Link is in the description. It is free to join. We are trying to put together a real money redraft listener league where you play against us. We have 8 spots full. We have 4 spots left. Hop in the Discord. Let's get this done. Preseason week 2 is basically over. We do have one more game, a Monday night game, the Bengals and Commanders, but 15 of the 16 games have played. And we like to go back and look at not really how people perform, because people who always say preseason's overrated, and I half agree with them. If someone looks amazing in preseason, it doesn't really mean that much. However, usage is important to me. How teams are using their players, who's in with the starters, who's next in after the starters is very, very important. So we're starting off with the Titans and Falcons game. We're trying to go through every single game here. We actually have 2 players from this game to talk about, but the first up is Casey Washington for the Atlanta Falcons. Casey Washington, who, if you guys watch this channel, I've been really high on him as a dynasty deep stash since last year. He was a rookie last year. And I told him, he has some intriguing qualities about him to stash. Now, I didn't think he would make an impact in 2024, which he didn't at all. But here he is in 2025, and he seems to have replaced Darnell Mooney in terms of, while Darnell Mooney is dealing with his injury. He's not going to replace him, without injury. But Darnell Mooney's dealing with a shoulder injury. And it seems like Casey Washington's, the 6th-round pick, is next in line to fill that Darnell Mooney role. So if Darnell Mooney were to miss time during the season, or the shoulder injury lingers, Casey Washington would be the guy playing that Mooney role. And you guys know that Mooney was pretty good last year. He almost had 1,000 yards receiving. He was a usable piece in fantasy football last year. He was the wide receiver 36 in points per game, wide receiver 31 in total points. So he was he's a bye week type of replacement. So potentially a guy like Casey Washington, this is more for maybe deeper leagues, deeper dynasty leagues, but he could potentially be a factor this year. Alec Iomanner is the next guy I want to talk about here, and his usage seems like he's going to have a regular season role. Now, Alec Iomanner, for those of you that don't know, a lot of you dynasty heads will know the name, but he's a rookie, 4th-round pick. Heading into the pre-draft process, January, February this year, after the main guys of Emeka Egbuka, Travis Hunter, Ted McMillan, Alec Iomanner was kind of like that wide receiver 4/5 to start off the pre-draft season. He fell a little bit in the draft, but he has good size. He's 6'2", 206. I think he can kind of play all over the field, which is nice. He can play in the slot. He can play on the outside. He can move around. But Alec Iomanner, I think, started as the Z receiver. And so you have, obviously, Ridley's going to probably play that X role. Tyler Lockett's going to be in the slot. And there's kind of a battle between, Van Jefferson, Chimere Dike, another 4th-round rookie, Alec Iomanner, who's going to play that 3rd wide receiver spot for them. And potentially with the usage of what we saw from Alec Iomanner in the preseason, it could be him. So I'm pretty excited about Alec Iomanner. Year 1, he could pop off a little bit. And by pop off, I mean, he gives you some things to kind of look forward to in the future years, which it's hard to say for a lot of 4th-round picks. So Alec Iomanner could get some good usage from, the beginning of the season this year, which is great to see. Next up, we have for the Chiefs, this is kind of minor news, I think, and I don't even know how much I believe it, but Carson Steele seems to be ahead of both Elijah Mitchell and Brashard Smith. So he was the second running back in the game. Carson Steele was. So you had you have Pacheco and Kareem Hunt there, right? You have Pacheco, you have Kareem Hunt. And I think Kareem Hunt was injured this week, so he didn't end up playing. So you had Pacheco and then Carson Steele. So this is more for the Elijah Mitchell, Brashard Smith news. I was kind of excited about Brashard Smith. Elijah Mitchell, I know some people are speculating, could he be the RB2 behind Pacheco? Maybe it's Carson Steele, maybe not. Minor news. Just keep an eye on it. I don't think I'm drafting any of the Chiefs running backs outside of Pacheco and maybe Kareem Hunt. So avoid Elijah Mitchell if you're planning on drafting him. Dolphins-Lions game, it's Jalen Wright. He continues to kind of have that stranglehold on the RB2. RB2 role for the Dolphins. Obviously, you have Achane there, who's going to be the main guy, but Alexander Madison, who is kind of potentially in contention for the RB2 job, season-ending neck injury. So I was already a little bit excited about Jalen Wright before the Madison injury. Now Madison gets hurt. And so now you're left with basically Jalen Wright and Ollie Gordon. It's Achane, Wright, and Gordon. Probably Wright is the favorite to be the RB2. And as we know from a couple of years ago, the RB2 for the Dolphins doesn't necessarily need an injury to be relevant. We had Mostert and Achane a couple of years ago both be relevant together. Are they going to try and just lighten the load a little bit on Achane and bring in someone like an Ollie Gordon or Jalen Wright? So who knows what we get from the RB2? A lot of times when you say RB2, you're thinking, oh, they need an injury, right? Well, maybe not for the Dolphins backfield there. Texans and Panthers, I also have two notes on this one. Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb could be very good this year. I mean, good in the sense that he's going to get a lot of work this year. Obviously, we have Joe Mixon out with an injury right now. We don't really know. It's a non-football injury. He's on there with a foot and ankle. And the recent thing that, the most recent news we've had is from Aaron Wilson. By the way, a lot of this information comes from PFF. Nathan Yankees, he recaps all the different games and fantasy implications. So go and check that out. I'll leave the link in the description of the video to that article as well. But sounds like Aaron Wilson, and it sounds like he isn't a lock. Joe Mixon isn't a lock for week 1. So there's no transparency. There's no what's going on here. I'm a little bit worried. I'm getting worried about Joe Mixon, which means Nick Chubb could be incredible value. I mean, we just did a mock draft last night. Nick Chubb, where he went. Nick Chubb went at the 11th. He went at the end of the 11th round. We're talking about the potential RB1 for the Browns, who, by the way, it's Nick Chubb. I know he's had a lot of injuries, but he's still only 29 years old. What if Nick Chubb, he didn't look good last year, but he was coming off a major injury. Now he's a couple years, a year and a half or so out, maybe about almost 2 years out from that huge injury last 2 years ago where his leg bent the wrong way. Maybe he's going to get back, to being normal or something. Just saying, I think Nick Chubb, if you're drafting this weekend, you potentially could get him in double-digit rounds, and you could be getting the starting running back for the Texans maybe for a month or maybe longer. The other news here is Cade Stover. This is more for you dynasty heads, but for redraft too. He is fighting for a larger role. Stover played more offensive snaps than Dalton Schultz did with the starters in this last preseason game. So I kind of liked Stover as a deep stash as well. Last year, we do a dynasty waiver wire show each week during the season. He was consistently on that. He's a former 4th-round pick. He played with C.J. Stroud at Ohio State. And Dalton Schultz, I know he's going to be on this team this year, but he's getting up there in age. He just turned 29, so he's not old, but he's just not that impressive. Outside of that big season he had with Dallas, it's just he's okay. He kind of does what he does, and he gets you what he gets you type of thing, but he doesn't really create yards or anything like that. Could a guy like Stover do that for you? A younger player who comes in and, already has a little bit of chemistry. So it's worth noting. I mean, mostly if you were thinking about drafting Dalton Schultz, I don't think a lot of people are, but just keep an eye on it. I mean, Cade Stover, who, by the way, the Texans passing game, we think they have a lot of weapons, but it's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, you have obviously Nico Collins there. Tank Dell's not going to be playing. Christian Kirk, we'll see what he is. Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll are rookies. So, there's room for someone to kind of step up and be the consistent second target here. I don't think there's a lock for anyone being the second target. We assume it's going to be one of the rookies or Christian Kirk, but what if it's a guy like a Cade Stover? Who knows? Into the Packers and Colts game, it's more Marshawn Lloyd. I can't remember if we talked about Marshawn Lloyd or not, but he seems to be the RB2 for the Packers. At least that's how they're using him in preseason. He played most of the snaps and received the most carries, the most snaps and most carries with the starters. So Emmanuel Wilson and Chris Brooks are also there who I think they're solid players, but Marshawn Lloyd has the potential to be something special for the Packers. I think I really liked him as in the pre-draft process last year. He had some of the best breakaway percentage and forced missed tackle rate out of anyone in that draft class. So I'd like to see him healthy and see what he can do. Can he be kind of that explosive change of pace back who can do a lot of things with very little work? We'll see. And obviously, if something happens to Jacobs, it seems like it's going to be Marshawn Lloyd as the RB2. Cedric Tillman, wide receiver for your Cleveland Browns. The reason I bring this one up is because I don't think there's really that wide receiver room is kind of a mess right now. I think your top four is like Judy Tillman, Jamari Thrash, and Deontay Johnson, right? And but we don't really know what the order is or how they're going to use these guys. All we know is that Judy is going to be the main guy. Like Judy, I think is an incredible value this year. Judy is going to be the main guy, right? But is it going to be Tillman as like that X wide receiver? Is it going to be Thrash in the slot, Deontay Johnson in the Z or the? It's kind of a mess. So if you were kind of banking on Cedric Tillman being the wide receiver 2 for this team, I don't think it's necessarily a bad bet, but I don't think it's a guarantee. So just keep that in mind here. This wide receiver room's a little bit of a mess. It really is. Raiders and 49ers. We're going to talk Brock Bowers here. All right, let me start off by just saying Brock Bowers is amazing. He had an incredible rookie year. There's an argument to be made that he's already the best pure receiving tight end in the NFL. And he has as good of a chance as anyone to be the tight end 1 in 2025. That being said, tight end 1 doesn't necessarily always mean that tight end should be being drafted early second round, which is kind of where Bowers is right now. He's being drafted in PPR leagues kind of in the first half of the second round. Sometimes he falls to the mid-second round, but it's very rare. He's usually gone within the first 4 or 5 picks of the second round. Just because he's going to be tight end 1 doesn't necessarily mean that production warrants being drafted that early. That's like Travis Kelce prime years. Travis Kelce got into the first round at one point, but Travis Kelce years, like we don't really see tight ends drafted this early. Usually the first tight end is closer to the end of the second 2-3 turn. And I'm just giving you what was played out in preseason week 2. And again, a lot of this information comes from Nathan Yankee's article. Check the link in the description. But this is how it went in week 2 for the Raiders. They played 13 plays on offense. They had 13 plays on offense out of 11 personnel. If you guys don't know what 11 personnel is, it's 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers, right? Bowers, he had that first big play. Michael Mayer was on the field for first and second downs, and Bowers came in on third downs. That's how it came out. So what it led to is Michael Mayer played 8 snaps, and Brock Bowers had 5 snaps in those 11 personnels. They also had some goal line stuff where they brought in 3 tight ends. Now, this is just preseason. This doesn't necessarily mean this is how it's going to go. But there was reports, that they had big plans for Michael Mayer. Michael Mayer, when he was drafted a couple years ago, big argument there that he was the best tight end in that draft class because especially of his ability to be a blocker and a receiver. He could kind of do it all. He was a well-rounded tight end, whereas Brock Bowers and other players, Dalton Kincaid, are more of those receiving type of tight ends. And generally, smaller tight ends, they play less, they're on the field less, and they're a little bit frustrating. Guys like Juwan Johnson, Chigakonkwo, Kincaid, these guys, they're quite frustrating for fantasy because they're not on the field all the time. Now, Brock Bowers is different. Brock Bowers is special. Brock Bowers is amazing. That being said, the Raiders are going to want to run the ball a lot more. Ashton Jeanty is going to kind of be the focal point of this offense, in my opinion. And that leads to having maybe a better blocker like a Michael Mayer on the field just a bit more. And to kind of throw a wrench into all this again, this is Chip Kelly. Like, this is how Chip Kelly has used his tight ends. When he was the coach of the Eagles for 3 years there, from 2013 to 2015, he had 2 kind of tight ends that he would use. Zach Ertz was his receiving tight end, and Brent Selleck was his all-around receiving/blocking tight end. And what that led to, here's Zach Ertz's snap share his 3 years with Chip Kelly. 40, 50, and 71.9%. Brent Selleck, 76.5, 70, 51.9. Both those tight ends were playing a lot. And so I think it just limits the ceiling a little bit potentially for Brock Bowers if he's only gonna be out there 70% of the snaps. Now, he's amazing. He's maybe their best player on their offense, and they'd be a little bit crazy to potentially like just not have him on the field enough. Just put your best player on the field, right? Run more 2 tight end sets or something like that. All I'm saying is I'd be a little bit hesitant taking Brock Bowers early second. I would rather wait for late second, early third, or even a guy like McBride or Kittle. All I'm saying. Chargers Rams. Tyler Conklin is I think the receiving tight end for the Chargers. And I've been talking about since Tyler Conklin signed with the Chargers. I've been saying I wouldn't be surprised if Tyler Conklin had a low end tight end one season. Like Tyler Conklin, I don't think people realize like how consistent Tyler Conklin is as a receiving tight end. His last 4 years, 61 catches, 600 yards, 58 catches, 550 yards, 61 catches, 621 yards, 51 catches, 450 yards last year. Never had big touchdowns, but he was on the Jets for most of the 3 of those 4 years that I just listed off, playing with Zach Wilson and Sam Darnold and kind of all these players that the Jets went through. It wasn't until last year where he played with Rodgers. So I just think that Tyler Conklin could be a very good low-end tight end one. Justin Herbert targets his tight ends a lot. I think he targeted his tight ends 22% of the time last year. And Conklin could be the take hold of the receiving role for the tight ends. And think about the Chargers receiving room. It's McConkey and who are you? Who's next up in line? Who's the for sure tight end target number 2 for this team? I think it's up in the air. And so I'm interested in taking a shot on Conklin. I think he's going to be a waiver wire pickup. I think he has a good chance of being kind of in that giant bucket of tight ends where it gives you 3 to 4 catches, 30 to 50 yards, and the occasional touchdown here. I think we could be seeing a 60 catch, 650 yard season from Tyler Conklin. Into the next game here, it's the Jets and the Giants, and it's Breece Hall, and they're not using him as much as you would like for a potential workhorse running back. Breece Hall played just over 50% of the snaps this last preseason game, and that was with Isaiah Davis missing time. They had the 3-man rotation in week 1, right? It was Hall and then Allen and then Isaiah Davis. Hall kind of led the way, but Allen played on early downs. Isaiah Davis played on third downs. And then Isaiah Davis gets hurt. Hall starts the game, but then Allen comes in, and so he still barely played over 50% of the snaps. It's a little bit concerning, I think. That being, he's coming. This is the coaching staff here is coming from the Lions, and what do? They use 2 running backs consistently, and that kind of capped these guys just a little bit, right? Now, were they still successful in Detroit? Yes, but we're talking about a different team here, different offensive line, and also the Lions don't have a rushing quarterback, and Justin Fields is going to get his too. I guess I'm getting a little bit concerned about Breece Hall, where his ADP is. He's going as RB14. Man, it's just it might be a thing where like I'm going to avoid him, and if I can get him at a value in round 4 instead of round 3 or something, then maybe I'll take him. But I'm getting a little bit nervous there, just like I'm getting a bit nervous here about Caleb Johnson. Kenneth Gainwell is ahead of Caleb Johnson right now. That's what the first 2 preseason games have shown us. It's Jaylen Warren sitting out with the clear starters. So Jaylen Warren is the clear starter for this team. And then there's Kenneth Gainwell is coming in and Caleb Johnson. And, this is normal, I guess, for rookies sometimes. But, like, generally you like to see your rookies, like, put them in the starting role. They didn't do it week 1 and they didn't do it week 2. I don't know. I'm getting a little bit worried about Caleb Johnson here, and I'm not sure where he should be going in drafts at this point. I'm looking at half PPR ADP right now, and Caleb Johnson is going as RB28, 71st overall. we're talking about he's going at the end of round 6. That's guys, that's a starter. You're drafting Caleb Johnson as a starter. He might be RB3 for this team. A little bit worried here. I'm probably going to be avoiding Caleb Johnson. I wasn't the biggest Caleb Johnson. I didn't dislike him, but I wasn't the biggest Caleb Johnson fan coming out anyways. So it's just a little bit easier for me to avoid him at that ADP. Jag Saints, ETN. We talked about ETN last week and how he basically took like 100% of the snaps with the starters. That wasn't the case here in week 2. Bigsby got the start. And so what is this running back rotation? Is it ETN? Is it Bigsby? Is it Tootin? Looking to Allen? I don't know. So what it was like, it was Bigsby, ETN, or last week it was ETN took the first drive, Bigsby played the second and third, Vishal Tootin took the 4th drive, he took the next like 5 drives, and then Allen came in for like the last 2 drives. This week it was more Bigsby on the first and second downs, ETN played on third downs, and so that could be potentially. I was starting to think, is ETN becoming a value here? Now it is worth noting that Liam Cohen, had 2 relevant fantasy running backs in Rachaad White and Bucky Irving last year. So could that, mean that, hey, both ETN and Bigsby could be good? It could be, but I'm looking at their ADPs right now. Travis Etienne is going 90th overall, which again, that's not a huge investment, 90th overall. You're talking about a bench piece for most of you. That's middle of round 8, I believe, if I'm doing my math right. But Bigsby's all the way at 114, right? Bigsby's all the way at 114 there. I think I'd much rather have Bigsby a couple rounds later than I would ETN, a couple rounds earlier. So that's probably how I'm going to approach that backfield if I do take anyone from there. Last one here is the Bears and the Bills and Olamide Zaccheaus. If you were hoping for a Luther Burden breakout year, I'm not sure if it's going to happen because Olamide Zaccheaus is the starting slot receiver for the Bears as of right now. And it's not that surprising because Zaccheaus is a professional wide receiver. He's been in the league since 2019 now. He's consistently played that slot role for the Falcons and then the Commanders, I think for the Eagles there. But he had some good years with the Falcons. He put up 400 and 500, over 400 and over 500 yards last year for the Commanders. He put up over 500 yards. He knows how to play the position. This is the problem with rookies is it's a learning process, right? It's a learning process. And when you get these professional wide receivers that can come in and at least give you what's expected, like a Zaccheaus, I don't think the Bears are super desperate to start a guy like Luther Burden when they have DJ Moore, when they have Roma Dunze, when they have Loveland and Komet and all these other guys. They don't need Burden to be special year 1. They don't need it. So just keep that in mind. If you're hoping for a Luther Burden breakout, I'm not sure if it's going to come. He is currently not really being drafted. He's being drafted at the end of the 11th round or end of the 12th round, it looks like. And so, he's being drafted, but as a bench guy, I still don't mind drafting him there, but just keep that in mind. My internet almost cut out there at the very end, but appreciate you all. That's all I have for you today. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe, join the Discord, get into our money league, and I'll catch you guys all in the next video.